President Trump is spending the weekend at his Mar-a-Lago resort in Palm Beach, Florida. The president and First Lady visited Broward Health North Hospital and met with staff who treated victims of Florida's deadly school massacre.
The doctor was amazing. We saw numerous people and incredible recovery. Incredible. And first responders, everybody. The job they've done is incredible, and I want to congratulate you. Incredible job.
Did you speak with victims, Mr. President?
Yes, I did. Yes, I did. I did indeed, and it's very sad something like that could happen. But the job the doctors did, the nurses, the hospital, first responders, law enforcement, really incredible. The speed that they got the victims over to the hospital was like record. One case 20 minutes and one case 19 minutes from the time of the shot. It's an incredible thing. Thank you very much.
CBSN political contributor and Associated Press White House reporter Zeke Miller is in Washington and joins me now. Zeke, what kind of message does the president need to convey to the people of Parkland?
Yeah, this is a challenging moment for any president, not just Donald Trump. It's the job of being the healer in chief. This is a time when the country, a community in crisis, but also the entire country is looking to the president to show them leadership, help them heal, help them grieve, to emote and help them come to grips with what they've just come through. Certainly the president being there barely 48 hours after this tragedy, emotions are obviously still very raw. The president is, he's going to these sort of very carefully selected venues, whether it be the hospital or sheriff's office, sort of smaller, more contained venues that are, he's not going to a rally or a large vigil. He's trying to sort of be respectful of where the community is at this fragile moment. That's sort of the challenge that faces the president here. This is not the time. We're not going to hear him talk about things like gun control. That's something that the White House has made very clear the president's not going to talk about. But we may hear him talk about mental illness or some of the missed warning signs, both of the FBI and the local police department. We could hear some of that from him later today.
Sure. And meanwhile, Florida's Governor Rick Scott is calling on FBI Director Christopher Wray to step down after learning the agency failed to investigate that tip about the alleged shooter. What would the implications be if Wray were to step down, and is it even likely at this point?
The implications would certainly be it'd be a startling admission by the FBI director of failures, and it would also have consequences beyond just this one investigation, this one situation. Obviously, Wray and the president, have been at odds over that secret Russia memo, just a couple of that the president declassified just a couple of weeks ago. But it does not seem to be a very likely course of action right now. The Attorney General ordered a top-to-bottom review of sort of the reporting processes here. And this is the sort of thing that, the FBI has been very forthcoming about their failures here. They want to fix this process the same way that local officials on the ground want to fix the missed warning signs and missed phone calls and the tips that they didn't follow through on now that they have the hindsight of this terrible tragedy. So it doesn't seem like there's going to be any imminent changes over at the FBI.
Sure, and there will certainly be a full investigation into what went wrong. But switching gears now to Special Counsel Robert Mueller's indictments of 13 Russians for election meddling. What do you make of the president's response, and how do these revelations impact him politically?
The White House's response here, both from the president's attorney and the president himself, has been, in all capital letters, as Press Secretary Sarah Sanders put it, no collusion. That is not what this indictment says. And we heard from the Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein earlier today saying that this indictment has no evidence essentially of collusion between winning participants of winning members of Trump's campaign and Russian officials. That does not mean that every element of the Mueller investigation shows that. But the White House is sort of striking this celebratory tone. That's more about show than substance. They're trying to sort of put the Russia investigation behind the president, saying this was it, this is over, this is the end of it. Now let's move on to other things. It's not the end, but that's the message the White House is trying to send. They want to sort of put that forward. It's not the end. Mueller's still looking at things like obstruction of justice. Still has other avenues of investigation into the Russia investigation as well. And so the White House messaging might have meet reality down the line, and it might not be a pleasant one when they do meet.
Absolutely. CBS News has learned the FBI director, Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein, personally briefed the president about these indictments face to face. What does that signify to you?
It certainly signifies that they are sensitive to the president being surprised by these things. We've seen the president go on Twitter and react negatively to these things. And he's clashed with both of those men in the past about the Russia investigation. That's first of all. The second is that regardless of the of the president's campaign's involvement in this entirely, this indictment is a startling indictment of not just these individual Russians, but the Russian government in general. This is a clearly documented, well-documented case of Russian intervention in the 2016 campaign, of attempted meddling. Whether or not it changed the outcome, whether or not anyone on the Trump campaign knew about it, it is a foreign policy challenge for the president and for any president, and that's one of the reasons why they brought it to the president's attention. And
Zeke, we also learned Friday that White House Chief of Staff John Kelly is making changes to the security clearance process after those abuse allegations against top aide Rob Porter. Do we know specifics about what these changes entail?
We know that that the chief of staff has directed that he be personally involved in this process going forward. He wants to see information that comes over from the FBI that is troubling, along with the counsel's office. They want it personally ferried over to the West Wing, so it doesn't stay over in the Office of Personnel Security. They want to be briefed on why these things are taking so long in some cases. And also, Kelly saying that he wants to curtail the access of classified information for those with temporary interim security clearances, and that he would cut off access for those who've had interim clearances for a very long time starting next week. And that can hit people like Jared Kushner or others close to the president who've been operating on interim clearances for more than a year now. And then when that kicks in next week.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see who it does affect. All right, Zeke Miller in Washington, thank you.